rematch of the Dread Elves against Vermin Swarm match that I had with Nat just a week ago, I think, actually. 4,500 points. Army lists are almost exactly the same. So let's get into deployment and talk you through those. So this is our deployment then. We've got battlefield number 3. We just rolled those and generated them randomly. I'm not sure if they're official ones or not. We got the classic 12-inch standard deployment, which is actually quite nice. Yeah, I do like all the marching columns and all the fancy deployments, but every so often it's nice to just get back to the basic standard way of doing things. So that was okay. And then the secondary objective was King of the Hill, which is basically secure your opponent's selected terrain feature whilst not losing control of your own. Nat elected to take the water, and I elected to take the forest. So I've got to prevent him getting to the forest. He's got to prevent me from getting to the water. I felt like that was an immediate mistake on Nat's part because my army is all Cult of Yemma. Well, most of my army is Cult of Yemma. So I'm Strider. So I ignore dangerous terrains and I ignore the fact that it's a water feature and so on. Whereas Nat going into this water is going to lose his steadfast, which is going to be a problem for him potentially. But anyway, there you go. That's those were our secondary objectives. Just talk you through the armies. Just been some minor changes on Nat's side. He's dropped a Dreadmill from the game we had last week and replaced it with a second Abomination and a pistol for his BSB. So he's got Rat Swarm, Catapult, unit of Vermin Hulks, an Abomination, massive bunch of Vermin Guard with a BSB and a Ratachit Machinist in it. Then he's got another big unit of Vermin Guard here. This one has got his Magister Wizard Master and another Ratachit Machinist. Then another Abomination, Lightning Cannon, and another Rat Swarm. On my side, the only change has been that I've dropped my handbows and replaced them with repeater crossbows. So I'm just trying out a different weapon here. So Hydra, 12 Corsairs with crossbows, not handbows, 5 Harpies, Hunting Chariots, 11 Corsairs, again, crossbows, not handbows, big unit of Dancers of Yemma, 5 more Harpies, another unit of Corsairs, crossbows, not handbows, Hunting Chariots, 5 Acolytes. These ones are Yemma, so they've got spells 1 and 6, Pentagram of Pain and the Grave Calls. I forgot to take off this at this point, but let's not worry about that too much. BSB, Captain on a Manticore, unit of Dread Legionnaire Spearmen, General, Captain on a Manticore, and another unit of Acolytes. These are not Cult of Yemma, so they've got the Hereditary Spell, Crippling Fatigue, and Ice and Fire. So that's deployments. Okay, so we're into my movement phase here. There were no vanguards because it's been quite correctly pointed out to me that my acolytes no longer have vanguard. So thank you to the chap that pointed that out on my last YouTube video. And Nat doesn't have any vanguards. Neither of us have any scouts or anything like that. So we're just straight into movement here. So what I'm doing then is well, first of all, let me explain that Nat decided that he wanted to go second. The logic behind his thinking was that he wanted his shooting weapons to be in range, and he knew that if he went first, then they wouldn't be. So he's elected to go second, which presented me with an interesting dilemma, because if Nat had been going first, I would have deployed my Manticores behind the house so they didn't get shot off by a warp lightning cannon. But I'm going first. I know this because Nat's elected to say he wants to go second, and if I win the dice roll, I will go first anyway. So I'm sure I'm going first. So I've got to get my Manticores out, and what I'm kind of thinking here is moving them up, getting them into combat. I'm going to try and focus on taking out the warp lightning cannon before it can hurt them, basically. Other than that, I've got my 2 units here. This one moving into my forest here to protect it. So what we've agreed is that in order to claim the terrain feature, the center of the unit has to be in it. We weren't sure whether that was the right way, but we kind of felt like tiptoeing onto the terrain was kind of a bit of a weak way to go about it. So we decided that if you want to take the terrain, you've got to take it in earnest, really. So the centre of your unit has to be there. So I've got my Dread Legionnaires getting ready to hold this, should Nat decide to come this way. And of course, I'm steadfast in the forest because I'm a strider. And I've got my dancers here just moving into the water feature to hold it, so that if Nat decides to get his centre in, then he's going to have to charge this unit. So, and I think they will do fairly well against a unit of Vermin Guard. Other than that, we've got the chariot here moving up to take a shot at the Warp Lightning Cannon if it survives the oncoming magical assault from these two units. And if it doesn't survive that, then it'll go after the Abomination. This chariot here can't actually get into shooting range of anything, so it's just kind of moot. Well, it can. I think it can go after Thunder Hulks or the Vermin Hulks maybe, but anyway, it can't go after a big target, so it's just moving into position for later on. The Corsairs have edged forwards just so that they're in at long range because it's better than having no shooting, and the Hydra is moving up the flank here. So what I'm thinking here is that the Catapult, which is a fairly dangerous piece for my two big units here, is in the ruins. So I'm at -2 to hit it, so I want to get my breath weapon on it because my breath weapon doesn't roll to hit, is the logic there. So there you go. That's the end of my movement 1. Okay, so this is the end of my turn 1 then, and you can see that my number 1 objective of taking out the lightning cannon before it can tackle either of my characters has not come good. I managed to get Ice and Fire off in the magic phase, did the expected 7 hits, perfectly average. So I'm thinking 7 hits, Strength 4, Resilience 4. I'm looking for 2 minimum, but 3 ideally. And that's, I say ideally, that would be average. I'm looking for 3 wounds off my 7 hits on 4s. No, I got 1 wound off my 7 hits on 4s, so that was annoying. But the Hunting Chariot did follow up quite well. It then took 3 wounds off the lightning cannon with its D3 wounds roll, so that was pretty good. But then I thought, do you know what? This thing's down to 1 wound. I'm going to put this archer unit into it. I've only got to cause 1 more wound on it. Every shot missed, so that was quite frustrating. Other than that, we did a wound over here on the Vermin Hulks from these Corsairs at long range. So nothing too exciting. That is the end of my turn 1. So on to Nat's turn 1 here then, movement of course. And he's just kind of edging up here with his 3 kind of big blocks, not getting too close. I think he's thinking to cast spells and do a bit of shooting initially. He realised he'd made a mistake in putting his Vermin Hulks in front of his Abomination because it limited how far the Abomination could go. I think he was initially planning to march, but then he wanted to use his Napta Thrower, so then he only moved, which kind of trapped the Abomination there. So it's kind of, yeah, in a bit of a traffic jam over here. This Abomination has sort of trundled forwards, but I'd put a good distance in between myself and it so that I'd be able to charge it. So it's pretty much exactly where I expected it to be. The rat swarms have kind of come around in a bit of a symbolic, futile gesture there, but not to worry. So that's the end of Nat's movement turn 1. Okay, so this is the end of Nat's turn 1. And Nat has had an even more ridiculous turn than I did. I really felt sorry for him. It was shocking how bad the dice were for him. He failed to cast all of his spells except Hand of Heaven, which I then was able to put the maximum 5 dice into. So he didn't get anything off in the magic phase. Then his Cannon, which was hitting on a 4, failed to hit. Then his Catapult, which was hitting on a 4, also failed to hit. I mean, you would expect one of those to go through, wouldn't you? Then he fired his Napta Thrower at, I think it was the Hydra, because obviously it's flaming and the Hydra's got a regen save. Can't remember what that's called nowadays. But anyway, it only did one hit and it failed to wound. So that was absolutely ridiculous. Got a couple of wounds on the chariots though, one on each one from the pistols and the lightning coils from his two Rakachit machinists. So just a couple of wounds there at the end of Nat's turn one. Really, really unlucky phase for him there. There you go. That's the end of Nat's turn one. Okay, end of my movement 2 here then. And I've double charged the Abomination with the two Manticore Manticore riding captains, that's what I mean to say. I think that these two between them should take out the Abomination. And I've charged at this rat swarm with my acolytes. I've realised after making the charge that this was overkill and a bit of a mistake, because what I've actually done here is limit the spell options that one of my acolyte champions has got, because now I've only got this arc of vision here. Whereas actually one unit would have been fine to take out the rat swarm, the other could have swung around here and had a much kind of freer magic phase that will follow. But there you go, never mind, it's done. So the Dread Legionnaires are kind of moving up cautiously into the middle here, because Nat isn't making any great advances in this direction, so there's no point in them kind of hanging around in the corner. And I've brought this chariot across here to be 18 inches from this Abomination so that I can try and double harpoon him, is the idea there. Corsairs are all sort of remaining largely still, so it was quite a stationary phase really. I dropped the Furies into this ruins here because I don't want this Abomination charging, well, not charging it, it's using its random movement into my Hydra, so they're there to block its path, and then the Hydra is exactly 6 inches from the catapult, so he can use his breath weapon, is the idea there. And then that just leaves these Furies here that have just been popped down, ready for some movement of blocking over here. That wound there belongs with that chariot. So that's the end of my movement turn 2. So this is the end of my turn 2 then. In the magic phase, I did 2 wounds on the Vermin Guard with Pentagram of Pain, no big deal. But in the shooting phase, the first thing that happened was the Hydra quickly dispatched the catapult with its breath weapon, doing 5 wounds on it. The hunting chariots between them only did 1 wound on the Abomination, so that was a bit of an underperformance, but never mind. But then the really good bit was 9 wounds from my Corsairs with my crossbows on this Vermin Guard. I'm kind of reviewing my crossbow handbow combo here, and this actually seems like quite a good return really, because where I'm playing with handbows, I'd have to be much closer, and these units are not really designed for combat, so I'm quite pleased with that. The acolytes, as you would expect, smashed through the rats and overran into the warp lightning catapult. So if the Abomination were to die, then this thing would be locked in combat anyway, so it couldn't shoot. So I'm quite happy with that. My 2 captains and their manticores did 10 wounds on the Abomination, but it saved 8 of them. So it only took 2 wounds itself. It did a wound on my general in return, but it passed its stubborn leadership test. So that is how we end my turn 2. Okay, so this is the end of Nat's movement phase, and what he's done here is charge my chariot, which I fully expected him to do, and it's fled. And I knew it was going to run through the dancers of Yema and the Corsairs, but both were within range of my BSB Manticore. So I was expecting them to pass their re-rollable 8 leadership test, but the dancers didn't. They rolled a 10, then a 12. So they fled. So there you go, that's that. Then the Vermin Hulk have come around here to kind of nap to thrower at my Hydra. But Nat's made a little bit of a mistake here because he's actually not in the arc of vision. So yeah, that's a bit of a shame for him. The Abomination is kind of trundling through the middle here, and these two units are continuing a bit of a cautious advance through the middle. So that's the end of Nat's movement 2. So, end of Nat's turn 2 then. He's killed a couple of Harpies with Awaken the Swarm, but they've passed their leadership test. And he's done 2 wounds on this chariot here from his Rakachit, Machinist, and his BSB's pistols. The Abomination has taken 6 wounds, but it saved 4 of them, but it still nonetheless lost combat, and this time it broke and fled. It fled from the model that had done the most damage, which was the General, so it fled sideways. I chased it, caught it, and ran into the side of this unit with both of my characters. So I'm on the flank of the Vermin Guard there now. And the Acolytes killed the Lightning Cannon and reformed. So it's been a really good turn 2 for me, of Nat's as well. This is all happening in Nat's turn 2, let's remember. So yeah, it's going well for me, not so well for Nat at the moment. Movement 3 here then, and there have been no charges. What I'm thinking here is the catapult, the lightning cannon, and the first A-bomb have all crumbled. So I've got 3 of my 4 big targets, and then there's this A-bomb in the middle here. Now I've got these 3 big blocks that are a problem. I think my characters can whittle away this one, which leaves these 2. Now, both of these should punch through anything that I can throw at it except the Dancers of Yema, probably. So what I want to do is split these 2 up. So I'm leaving my Hydra over here in the hope that the Vermin Hulks will come this way towards it. That's going to enable me, I hope, to take out this Abomination and focus on this Vermin Guard unit. And then that's going to bring them back down here later is what I'm thinking, by which point I'll be able to focus on them. So I'm leaving the Hydra here as bait, really. The Dancers and the Chariot both rallied, which was a good thing, because they'd have probably been off the board edge had they not. And that was about it, really. I dropped these Furies here just to ensure that he couldn't come down here at my Corsairs, because I want to get a good few rounds of shooting in here. So yeah, there you go. That's the end of my movement 3. End of my turn 3 then. The Chariot that was in range missed on the A-bomb, so nothing particularly good from that. But I did manage to do 4 wounds with Ice and Fire on this Vermin Guard unit in the magic phase, and then a further 8 wounds from the Corsair shooting. So I've done a total of 12 wounds on this unit. So what I'm trying to do here is just pelt this unit with shooting and spells, really, and whittle it down. Over on this side, the Vermin Guard lost combat, but passed because they're stubborn, and has then reformed to face this direction here. So Nat's got a nasty banner in here that gives him an extra rank of attacks, and then he's got a further extra rank for some reason. I don't remember what off the top of my head, but so he's going to get four ranks of attacks heading this way at strength 4. So that's quite quite beefy. But anyway, for now they lost combat but reformed. So that's the end of my turn 3. So Nat's movement 3 here then, and he's not going for the bait with the Hydra. Instead, he's turned and he's moving towards the Acolytes. He's also gone with the Abomination towards the Acolytes. Now I'd missed that. I hadn't realised that, because I'd thought that the unit would be in the way, but of course it's not, because it moves first, and then there you go. So he only needed an 8 to get to them, but he's been really unlucky again, and on 3 dice he's rolled 7. So I've really escaped a good pounding and the loss of a sort of 400 and something point unit there, really. He's put his rat swarms in the way of the Hydra to protect the rear of his vermin hulks as well, because he's obviously now planning to shoot and pound on this unit with his Naptor thrower. This unit is moving forwards, presumably to try and prevent me from taking the secondary objective here, and his other unit is locked in combat, of course. So that's the end of Nat's movement 3. It's turn 3 here then. He's failed to get the Hand of God off in the magic phase. That's what that marker is there, but it didn't go off. But he did get Awaken the Swarm on my Legionnaires here, which killed 6 Legionnaires. His Naptor thrower here also killed a couple of Acolytes, but Acolytes are quite durable. They've got that 4+ Aegis save, so that they're quite hard to take out, really. His Vermin Guard have lost combat again, but they've done a couple of wounds on my characters along the way, so that's not a bad return for them. Yeah, we just have to wait and see with that. Okay, so on to my movement 4 then. And what have I done? I've charged the rat swarm here. Got to get rid of the chaff, otherwise the Hydra becomes useless, so that's no good. Don't want to be anywhere near this abomination, so I've swung both of my light troop fast cavalries around the side here to pelt this Vermin Guard unit with spells, and then I've dropped my other harpies in the way of it here, so that it can't charge any of these units. It has to charge the harpies to get rid of them. So that's going to enable me to get a good round of shooting on it. If it overruns this way and potentially goes out of its charge arc, which would be fabulous. So I expect that Nat would probably charge them and then reform, which is going to enable me to shoot this turn, and next turn is kind of the idea. Chariots have both moved into position to be 18 inches away from the abomination, so I'm going to try and double harpoon it again. And the Legionnaires have advanced up here, ready to challenge for this water feature, try and take the secondary objective. But I don't want to move these Corsairs because I don't want to affect their to hit rolls this turn, so I've only gone this far, which is fine. There's plenty of time to get to this water because it's quite close. So next turn I'll just move the Legionnaires to the side is what I'm thinking, and then advance through with the dancers to take the water. So that's the end of my turn 4 movement, of course. So, on to the end of my turn 4 then. I did a wound on the Vermin Guard with Ice and Fire. That was a bit of an underperformance, but the Corsairs did 8 wounds from their shooting, so whittling this unit down nicely there as well. The Hydra beat the Swarm, but wasn't enough to break it, so that actually performed quite badly. So, they're stuck in combat over there. And the Manticore characters won combat, but the Vermin Guard held. Nat had forgotten to issue a duel in the first round of combat, but chose not to this time because he was looking for the extra ranks of attacks. So, yeah, there you go. That is the end of my turn 4. On to Nat's movement 4 then. You can see he's not made any charges. He's actually elected to sort of go sideways here. I'm not sure why. I mean, he's got Raven's Wing, so he could potentially kind of plop himself down in front of one of these units. But anyway, he's elected to go sideways. I'm not sure I'd have done that, to be honest. I think I'd have either planned to Raven's Wing during the magic phase or just charged the chaff and got it out of the way, because if he stays where he is, the chaff are just going to do the same thing again. So anyway, he is where he is. He's there. The Vermin Hulks are coming in to kind of heading in this direction here, I think, really trying to kind of get a charge off on the characters later, perhaps. And the Abomination's gone after the Furies, the Harpies, but it hasn't had the distance to get there. So that's the end of Nat's turn 4. beg your pardon. That was the end of Nat's turn 4 movement, is what I meant to say. So in the magic phase, he did actually cast Raven's Wing on his own unit, and he flew over here. He cast the big version and got all the way over here, and basically he's putting distance between himself now and kind of limiting the damage, really, isn't he? And he's put the attribute on the Vermin Hulks here, so they're going to be +1 advance, +2 movement. He's issued a challenge in the combat phase here with his champion, who's got an absolutely thorough pounding, as you would expect, but that has meant that he's still got 1 rank by the end of combat, although his general, who has only light armor and relies on being in the 2nd rank, is now in base contact, but that comes at the end of the turn, so he's not had to do any fighting just yet. And so because they were steadfast, he's got 1 rank, I've got 0 ranks. The rats still managed to hold. Over here, the Hydra finished off the rat swarm, so that was the end of Nat's turn 4. So on to my movement 5 then, and I don't want these Vermin Hulk charging the flank of my BSB. It's a long-ish charge, but they've got a decent chance of getting in there. So I've basically moved the harpies that were over here, have gone their full distance and have plonked themselves down in the path of the Vermin Hulks just to prevent that. I thought about, shall I swing the Hydra around the back of the ruins here and head off this unit of Vermin Guard? I think the Hydra would give them a decent fight, but it might die in the process, and I figured I'm doing really well in this game. I'm clearly going to win. I don't really want to throw away the points, so instead I've just elected to bring the Hydra down here. It's still got 4 wounds. If it comes down here, then there's no immediate threat to it. So I've decided against that, and I've plopped them down there. And then my other units have sort of basically stayed where they were because they're in a perfectly good position. So that's the end of my movement 5. Turn 5 here then, and I managed to get crippling fatigue off on the Abomination, so I was re-rolling wounds on it. And between the Corsairs and the Hunting Chariots, they managed to finish off the Abomination. So that's the final target of the big 4. And I managed to finish off the unit, killing the general. The Ratachip Magister managed to survive with a single wound. He fled. Fled on 2d6, and my general on swift striding pursuit failed to catch him. So there's a little bit of a gap there. And my sorry, I think that was my general. My BSB had dropped out of combat, so he wasn't going to be doing anything. But there you go. So that was the end of my 5. That's turn 5 here then, and his Ratachip Machinist has failed his rally test, so he's continuing to flee in this direction. He's charged at the Harpies here to get rid of them, which is the right thing to do, but it's probably too little too late now, to be honest. And the Vermin Guard have continued to kind of run away in the corner up here. So this is about points denial as it was before. So that's the end of Nat's movement 5. Nat's turn 5 here then. He's only got 2 spells left. He's got Raven's Wing and Twisted Effigy. And I've dispelled Raven's Wing, and his Twisted Effigy is out of range, so nothing in the magic phase. The Vermin Hulk smashed through the Harpies and reformed as you would expect them to. So that brings Nat's turn 5 to an end. Okay, so end of my movement 6 here then, and I've charged the Ratachip Machinist with the Hydra. I'm sure he wasn't going to get to him, but it was theoretically possible, which brought him closer to my general, who could then charge and catch him and reform here. I decided to do that because I didn't want to go into combat with this unit, because I would rather pelt them with fire. I'm going to take a round of shooting from the Napta thrower, unless I kind of, go and cower in the corners, but I feel like the game is going so well, that just doesn't feel like the right thing to do, really. So I've charged and caught that, and then reformed, and positioned all of my spellcasters and my various ranged weapons to pummel the vermin hulks is the idea. So that's the end of my movement 6. So end of my turn 6 here then, and between Pentagram of Pain in the magic phase and my 2 chariots and my corsairs, I've managed to inflict 7 wounds on the vermin hulks, but they've passed their panic test. So there you go, that's the end of my turn 6. Okay, so Nat's turn 6 here then, and the only thing really to do is to bring the Thunder Hulks, the Vermin Hulks, into shooting range with his Nat to throw on my general. That's the right move. Neither of his spells are going to make any difference now, so it's just a matter of seeing whether he can pop off my general or not really. So that's the end of Nat's movement 6. And end of Nat's turn 6 here then, and his Vermin Hulk only managed to do a single wound on my general with the Nat to throw, although they could have killed him because the 1 wound became D3 wounds, but it was still 1, and had it have been 2 or 3, it would have killed him. So yeah, the general got a lucky escape there. So the game ended 16-4, and then I've secured Nat's King of the Hill objective, but he's not secured mine, so that makes it 19-1, which I feel flatters my army, to be honest. I do think that it played well. I do think it would have won, but I don't think it would have won 19-1 on the basis of play. I feel that really flatters me. I certainly think that Nat was desperately unlucky at the start of the game, and at several times throughout as well. I mean, his A-bomb should have caught my acolytes. My general should have died. I also miscast earlier in the game, but nothing came from it, and it was a quadruple 6 that I rolled as well. Actually, I forgot to mention that earlier, and my general survived. So I was definitely lucky through the game, and I felt sorry for Nat, to be honest. It was a harsh result on him. I think something more along the lines of a 13-7 would have probably been a bit more of an honest reflection of the game. I really enjoyed the crossbows. The distance with the crossbows makes so much difference, because you can pop off all that shooting from a safe distance, rather than having to kind of be thinking about, oh, my Corsair's too close, this, that, and the other. That changes my army list, I think. I'm going to have to go back to it and look at the cult rules, because I'd made this army heavily Cult of Yemma on the basis that I wanted to be marching and shooting with the extra distance. But if my Corsairs are going to be sitting back, then it's only the Dread Legionnaires that are benefiting from the Cult of Yemma, which is going to give me reason to kind of review that and kind of have a think about whether there are better options. But I'm thoroughly enjoying playing with Dread Elves. They're a very enjoyable army to play. Quite simple and straightforward, but quite cruel and nasty, which is, I suppose, good design, because that's the character of the Dread Elves all over, isn't it? So anyway, there you go. That was the end of the game. Very, very flattering for me. Harsh to Nat, but a good outing for the crossbows, really. So yeah, there you go. That was it. Thank you everybody for joining me today. I've got a couple more games coming up because I'm on holiday here, so there'll be another one on Sunday night, Battle Report coming hopefully on Monday, and then I've got a game against Tim on Wednesday, so hopefully a Battle Report maybe Thursday or Friday, depending on whether my wife lets me write one or whether we're travelling or not, which I really don't know. Anyway, that's enough from me. Thank you, everybody. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.